Welcome to A Bit of Insight with Lisa Mosbey, your weekly dose of health, wealth, and everything else.
What if the deepest wound of your past could become the very tools Yahweh uses to bring healing and hope to others? Today's guest knows what it means to walk through darkness and discover freedom on the other side. Hey, everybody, welcome. I'm Lisa Mosbey, the host of A Bit of Insight. Grab your coffee because we're going to get into a deep conversation. Jennifer Flaherty, she's the founder and visionary of Hope for the Brave, and that's an organization with a bold mission to end generational violence, one person at a time. Jennifer's life is a story of resilience, redemption, and radical faith, from surviving childhood sexual trauma and teenage pregnancy to enduring domestic violence and battling years of opioid addiction. Jennifer has walked through darkness that could have destroyed her, but in 2016, by Yahweh's grace, she broke free and has been sober ever since. Today, she pours her energy and heart into helping others find freedom, healing, and strength through the gospel. With a 3-tiered program rooted in faith and no government funding, Hope for the Brave is a ministry on a mission to break cycles of pain and replace them with hope, courage, and new life. Jennifer, welcome to my podcast. So thank you. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate such a warm introduction.
Oh,
It makes
yeah.
me feel special.
Yes, we just met a couple of weeks ago, and the minute I met her, I grabbed her hand and I said, "Let's have a conversation that I want to share what you're doing with my audience, because it's, we don't see a lot of miracles, or maybe we do see a lot of miracles, but to me, it is a miraculous story. And I know you're going to share big chunks of it today, to just really hopefully give people hope. I mean, that is what you do, is give people hope. And you said that Yahweh used your story to equip you for ministry. So the people that are walking through the tough stuff right now, this story is happening for a reason. Your story is unfolding for a reason. And maybe it's to serve something greater. So I briefly touched on your story. I want you to go into the more powerful and deep impact that it has on who you are today. Where did all of this begin, and how did you see his hand in your journey?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Well, as a kid, like you kind of touched on, I was born to two 17-year-old generationally alcoholic parents. We lived on the east side of St. Paul. My dad was gone most of the time, and my mom worked night jobs to provide for us kids, me and my sister, because she didn't want to depend on the welfare system, and obviously she couldn't depend on my dad. During the summer times, we'd go up to my grandmother's house, and during those visits, just the kids would go up north on the White Earth Indian Reservation. And while we were at my grandmother's house, I was being molested by her husband. Molestation destroys a kid in an unimaginable way. And for me, it robbed me of my self-esteem. It took away my ability to trust and made me promiscuous at a young age. My promiscuity caused me to become pregnant at the age of 13, and I had an abortion. I got pregnant for the second time at the age of 14, which resulted in my only child, my son David. Absolute testimony to God's grace. He is well educated, 3 bachelor's degrees, world traveled, and he is content and believes in God. And what else could I ask for? His father, however, had his own life of struggles, and he was an abusive man. And we were together for about 10 years until we split apart. And I thought that I would be better once we split apart, but I didn't take the time to heal from that. Healing is very, very important after you go through trauma.
Mhm.
Then, to add insult to injury, a couple of years before my son graduated from high school, I got into some car accidents and I hurt my back. And after physical therapy, water therapy, and radio frequency didn't work, I got handed opiates. And, to somebody who already liked to drink because it was genetic, those opiates, that was a demon of monstrous power that by all rights should have killed me and almost did. But I've been sober since 2016. After 2 failed treatment attempts, 2 DWIs, and many visits to the hospital for overdose and withdrawal and rehab and jail, tried one last time on the incessant begging of my mom, and been sober since 2016. And after that, my life soared. And really, that all of those things. Just like the book of James says, consider it pure joy, all the trials and tribulations, because it's going to build your perseverance and your faith. And all of it is used. Every single solitary piece of that I have been through, it's like a perfect puzzle. Everything has come together, and it's all used for God's glory to allow me to help other people, you know? So that's the background. Do you want me to tell you what we do now?
Yeah, we're going to get into that. The thing that comes to me is my dad used to talk about life being a pendulum, like a stopwatch, like a pocket watch on a pendulum, on the string or on the chain. And when life swings this way to all the bad that's in the world, it can swing equally as far to the other direction for the good. So do you want your pendulum to be this big, or do you want your
Right.
pendulum to be this big? In order to have all that pure joy and bliss, there's going to be some lessons along the way. There's going to be some stuff that happens. And like you said, it's all used for our good. It all can be used for our good. Hope for the Brave has such a bold vision, ending generational violence one person at a time. Like, just the words alone sound scary.
Yeah.
But for our listeners that may not be familiar with this, can you explain what generational violence is and why breaking the cycle matters?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking such an important question. So, generational violence, traumas such as domestic violence, sexual violence, alcohol, and drug addiction, they usually carry from household generation to generation. So, a lot of times, the things that you are going through, it's you learned it in your own house. So what I mean by that is that a child's core values, I believe the age is 8. A child's core values are instituted in their head. They're learned in their head by the time they're 8 years old. And where are they until 8 years old? They're in your house. They are growing within the four walls that they live, right? And if you have a household that has alcoholism and drug addiction or sexual assault or domestic violence, any of those things, a child grows up viewing this as this is their normal. This is their view of what normal is. And then you go to, say, the kid goes to visit his friends, and in the friend's home, if you are living in an oppressed community, in the friend's home, they also are seeing this too. I mean, it only cements the idea that this is normal. And with the trauma that they endure themselves living in an unhealthy home, they're likely to repeat the cycle. So that is where you get the generational violence. That is where you get the alcoholic and drug addicted, that carries from generation to generation. That is what I see. That is what I believe. That is the case for my own life. And that is what I see in many, many lives of the people that we serve. So
But breaking that generational violence, what does that look like in practice? That's kind of your day-to-day task when you're working with young people and those experiences. What does that look like with those folks, those young people?
well, in my opinion, to
Mhm.
break it can't just mean one thing. So there are different ways that you need to choose to break this. So, for example, you have to try to prevent it. So preventing it means go in and show these kids that they are loved. A lot of times when you're growing up in a household where it's unhealthy, sometimes the parents, if they're dealing with their own traumas, they're in survival mode.
Yeah.
Having been there myself, you're in survival mode. And meeting the basic needs of Johnny, I'm just using the name Johnny,
Yeah.
as an example, meeting the basic needs of food and shelter is hard, right? You certainly sometimes are going to be exhausted. Even the most loving mother is going to struggle to give love in a joyful way. Right? You're tired. You don't have time, throw a couple kids in there and you've been working all day, or maybe you're addicted to drugs because you're trying to escape it, right? You're trying to escape these feelings. So, at any rate, at the beginning, we have to try to get to the kids. We have to try to give them a positive role model, make them feel loved, give them the basic need of joy, allow them to feel joy,
Mhm.
right? Allow them to know that you're showing up for them because they matter. They are priceless. These children are priceless. And when you do that, they start to, in my opinion, right? They start to develop a more positive sense of self because somebody sees me. Somebody sees me, somebody cares about me. We did this just for you, right?
Tell the
That
story of
feels,
the Christmas presents.
yes, yes. We do that just for kids. And
Yeah.
so we do things. That's what we do. One of the tiers of our program is called prevention, education and prevention. And for that, we have a partnership with Citizens Against Sex Trafficking, where we go to speak at the schools to educate them. We also have partnerships with different treatment facilities like ANEW, ANEW, where we go and we speak to the women, right? Um, we also we have a clothing closet in Dayton's Bluff Rec Center to meet the basic needs of families that don't have money to go shopping for clothes. So the clothing closet is at Dayton's Bluff Rec Center, and people can come and shop and they can get things for free, right? But then we bring joyful, amazing, joyful spaces to kids. And this, if it seems like I'm lighting up, it's because this is like my favorite thing. We,
When you told me about that, I was like, oh my gosh, I want to be in town for that to help you with it.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes, yes. Our upcoming holiday event last year, over 600. This year will be the fifth year that we did it at Dayton's Bluff Rec Center.
Yeah.
And last year, over 600 people came. We are an organization that is very small. I make what I made in 1993. We don't have money, but what God has made me good at doing is pulling people together to make what I call stone soup. So
Mhm.
we have at this holiday event, we have Carboni's Pizza, Chick-fil-A, Boca Chica, and Jimmy John's as choices for food. We have Cookie Cart and Culver's ice cream as choices for desserts. We have Caribou Coffee comes and brings a hot cocoa bar. So it's a little bit from everybody and it allows us to be a big bang, right? In another room, we create a toy store. Half of a gymnasium becomes a toy store where every kid gets to walk in and get their own unwrapped toy. The other half of a gym becomes a place where they get to get a gift for their mom or dad. There's games, partners come and they play little games so the kids can win little candy prizes and stuff. And last year, what started 5 years ago in 2021, well, I mean, this will be the fifth year. So I got it, it's 4 years ago, but this will be our fifth year. There was 50 people there, you know, and it has grown to the point last year, our fourth year, there was over 600. It was questionable about whether or not we could even do it at Dayton's Bluff this year because it's too big. I
It'll be
love
a
that.
two-day
It's too
event
big.
if yeah, you're going to outgrow the space or it's going to have to be a two-day event.
Well, yeah, I mean,
So I'm
so
curious, I know you talk about you've talked to the kids after this event. What are some of the testimonials? What are the things that you hear? Because I know their faces just light up. I mean, just by looking at your face and how you light up. And I know that's a
yeah,
reflection of the experience for them. But what kinds of things do you see happen from offering these kinds of events for these young people?
it's joyful. It's
Yeah.
very joyful. Kids don't get to do this kind of stuff.
Some
So
kids. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, this is just one example of what we
Yeah.
do, right?
Yeah.
We do this in the spring, we do this in the summer, we do what do you call it, camping trip, a backpack giveaway. We do a lot of different things. So there is one boy, you asked what do
Yep.
the people
Yep.
say, right? There is one boy that I just had the luxury of being with the other day, right? And he said to me, in school today, they had us write a paper about what we did with our summer. And do you know that I've been writing for 3 pages, he said, and I'm not done yet. And he said, and all those things that I did in the summer were with you. And this child, I mean, I can see his picture in my head, and I know that
Yeah.
he would not have the ability to do these things if we didn't do them with him, you know? So that's the kind of stuff, you know. There's another little boy that I see every time I walk into Dayton's Bluff. Sorry, I'm crying now.
There's no apology. It's tears of joy. Yeah.
Oh, you know, there's another little boy that I walk in and I will see him walking down the hall and he runs up to me. His name is RJ, and I'm sure his
Oh,
mom won't mind me saying that. But
okay.
you know, I see him and he's got troubles, you know. But when he sees me, he turns around. I say to him, RJ, who's the King of Kings? And he'll say, Jesus.
Oh my gosh.
You know, I mean, you make a difference. These kids, they they feel seen by you. They
Yeah.
feel loved by you. And
Yeah.
that's what they say, you know, they feel loved. And that
Yeah.
is an amazing gift to be able to be the hands and feet of Jesus and love people, children, but all people. That's what I love to do. I love to just love people.
You do.
But
When I met you, oh, hello. And it was like there was no stopping you. You were coming in for a full-on hug. There was no shaking hands. We hadn't, but it was what was amazing about that was I felt like you were a soul sister. Like I just by making eye contact with you and the energy that you exude and how you lit up the room. You had this presence behind you that kind of was something to embrace. Like it just
yeah,
draws a person in. And I saw you do that with every other person behind me that walked in the door. And
yeah,
that's how you exude joy, how you show up and project joy. And many people, have said that about me is like, no matter what's going on, you always have a smile on your face. And again, I can't help but quote my dad because he said, any day above ground is a good day. So why wouldn't I have a smile on my
amen.
face? Yeah.
Amen.
And
Yeah,
and we kind of focused on children here, but it's more than that. You led to something when you said, I know RJ's mom wouldn't mind if I shared this because oftentimes, like you said, parents have experienced this in their childhood and they don't know a better way.
yeah,
They don't know different. And they maybe are struggling to put food on the table and can't always do these things. And for them to set their ego on the table and say, you know what, I'm going to go ask for help. I'm going to show up in these places. And when they get to see their child experiencing joy, it may be
yeah,
for some of them the first time they've really truly experienced joy in their own heart because life has been such a struggle. So there's this trickle up effect that is happening
right.
in the work that you do, not just trickle down. RJ's family in the future may experience more joy because you changed, you broke that chain, broke that generational violence, broke, that him not being seen.
Yeah,
And now the mom gets to experience joy through his joy, and his family, future family, if he has one, will experience joy. So it's you're bringing back hope. Many people today feel hopeless in the middle
yes,
of addiction or abuse, or even just what's happening, in the world today. So many people are offended
yes,
by everything we say. What do
yes,
you want those people to know? Because it's not just about the children, it's about the adults too. What do you want
yeah.
those people to know, and what role does faith play in healing?
Oh, faith for me, 100%. I could not do, you know, people say, well, I envy your faith, right? I've had some people say I envy your faith because to leave my corporate career in 2024 to do a ministry that doesn't have any money, when mine is the only paycheck and we don't accept government grants, like you said, that takes faith. It was scary, right?
Yeah.
It is all faith. It is all God. In
Mhm.
my mind, my job, my job is to wake up and serve him, and everything belongs to him.
Yeah.
You know, my house, my car, my time, the breath in my lungs, everything belongs to him. That is where my faith is at. And
Yeah.
without him, nothing is possible. With him, everything is possible. My job is to be obedient and do the things that he wants me to do. And, you know, as far as like you were talking about, you bring hope, that is what it was for RJ's mom. You know, for RJ's mom, the hope was just she sees a fellow believer in that school. And sometimes I feel like that's the problem is we took God out of everything, you know, and when you know that somebody is there, you know, and they're praying and they're keeping this space in prayer where your children go, that makes a difference to people. That is the hope that they need, in my opinion,
Hmm.
right? And I just there's so many stories. There really are. There's so many stories of how we help people because we don't only help children, like you know.
Yeah.
You know,
I see
we
how it
don't know.
affects the whole family. Yeah.
Right. Well,
You talk,
and
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, I was
Um,
gonna, I wanted to jump back over. You mentioned the three-tier program, and I wanted to go a little bit deeper with that because there's probably people listening to this, listening to the stories, listening to the difference that you make and the fact that it needs funding. So I wanted to jump into like tell us more about the partnerships. How do you collaborate with other people? How do you receive contribution, donation? How do you fund these projects? You know, diving a little
yeah.
bit deeper into that three-tiered program that you've built.
Yeah, well, thank you. The way that we are funded is by people, by individuals who want to be the hands and feet of Jesus with us.
Mm-hmm.
And you can make donations at our website, hopeforbrave.org, HOPEFORBRAVE.org. We have not received, like I said, we will not receive ever any government funding. I don't want that. I view Hope for the Brave like a church where everybody comes together, all the believers come together to be the hands and feet of Jesus to serve the people. That is what I believe that we are supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the three-tiered program, like I said, one tier is education and prevention, and we talked about that. The other tier is support. You asked, how do you end generational violence? Well, you get to the kids before it starts and give them hope and love. Then if somebody is struggling and they come across your path and they want to change, but they just don't know how, that's when you provide support. And support means different things. I don't raise my hand and say that I do this online or any social media networks because we don't freely do it. I'm one human and I only accept referrals, if you will, from churches and partner organizations to help people because we are very, very financially and time wise limited because I am me, right? But support means sometimes ministering to women, sometimes women or men, not just women, men too, don't understand that what they are in is an unhealthy relationship. Sometimes they think it's a better idea to stay and keep the family together because they don't understand how the generational trauma happens, and they don't understand that they could be harming their kids by doing that. You know, sometimes separation is necessary until you can both be better versions of yourself, and then you can come back together. Sometimes you don't come back together. But support ministry to talk to people, and make them understand. Otherwise, sometimes people need referrals to get them into shelters, and we help people get into shelters if that's necessary. We also partner with housing stabilization organizations to help people get up on their feet too. The third tier of our program is healing for people who use abuse. And whether that means this kind of abuse or this kind of abuse, we can make referrals to get people into treatment facilities like Teen Challenge. And we can also make referrals. We are part of the Violence Free Minnesota network. And Violence Free Minnesota gives us a slew of resources to be able to refer out this kind of abuse help too. So that is how you stop it. You hit it before it starts and try to prevent it. You help the women and children and the men too. It is more shaming for a man to admit that he's being abused. You know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of abuse that happens to men at the
Yeah.
hands of women, and men don't like to talk about it. It makes them feel weak and ashamed. So you help support people through it. And then if they want to change, you help them change. That's how you end it. You can't just focus on one thing.
Yeah, it's really lovely. I mean, it's so amazing. I hope that more and more folks get to contact you and get in touch with you and be a witness for all that you've been doing with this. Government funding, do you want to comment on that? Why you choose not to open up and have government funding?
Well, there's a lot of reasons why, actually. One is I want to do God's work, and I don't want to have someone else dictating how I can do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be led by the government. I want to be led by Him.
Yeah.
I think it's I think it's important to always be led by Him.
Yeah.
And government funding also is unreliable. God's people aren't, right?
Yeah.
you know, when you have government funding, interesting that this conversation should come up today when there is a federal freeze,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If I relied on government funding, maybe I wouldn't be able to do anything. There is in Hastings, there was one shelter, one domestic violence shelter. And if I understand correctly, they didn't get their OJP grant, and that caused them to get shut down. You know, I think that was in 2023, right? When you are reliant on the government, your steps are ordered by them.
Mhm.
When you rely on God, you listen to him and you rely on him, and it is a beautiful thing. You know, it was really scary at first. You know, I'm a single woman. I'm a
Mhm.
single woman, and there is no boyfriend, there is no husband. I take care of my mom. My mom lives with me. She
Mhm.
gets a very small Social Security check. Leaving corporate America on July 1st of 2024 was like, and then but I had a plan. You know, I was going to fundraise, I was going to do this, and I was going to do that, but every single thing I did didn't work. And then I was a little bit scared. I gotta admit that. I was really scared. But one pastor told me, he said, I said, you know, I have to have these meetings to raise the money, and I don't have time because I'm too busy out here doing the work. Right.
Mhm. Mhm.
And he said, you focus on doing God's work. Your job is to focus on doing God's work. His job is to provide for you so that you can do his work. Depend on him and see what happens. And do you know, I've been doing that ever since.
Mhm.
And, you know, although I don't make much, you know,
You
I,
have food in your belly,
it's,
and I know
it's
that you now
enough.
have medical care for a year thanks to a grant, a gift. Somebody gifted.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Hallelujah. Do you know, 3 days before I was in that office, what you don't know, Lisa, is I had been having problems, thyroid problems. And I really, really wanted to see a doctor. And I was resorting to going to a low income doctor, and it was hard all the way on the east side of St. Paul. I live in Hastings. And I didn't feel that I was getting treated well by them at all. And I just felt so desperate. I wrote in my journal a couple of days before that speaking engagement. I really am afraid of the medical care thing. I wrote that in my journal. And then a couple days later I was speaking there. I didn't know that Nellie was a doctor when she asked me to come to that speaking engagement. And when I walked in and saw she was a doctor, I wanted to ask her questions.
Yeah.
But I thought this is not the right place. You didn't come here for that, right? So for her during that speaking engagement to to make the statement that somebody donated a year's worth of service, and for her to gift it to me, that's God. That
Yeah.
is God. That is what I mean. Like
Yeah.
he provides. You I don't even know how to respond to that. I'm gonna start crying again.
The way that it happens, though, you asked and you received, and you asked
Yeah.
in Jesus' name, and you asked through prayer, and
Yes.
continue to be obedient and
Yes.
trust that all things are happening in divine time and will show up when it's needed. And it
Yes.
did. And then
Yes.
today, before we push record, you were sharing with me again a couple of big stops that you made this morning to pick up. What what was donated, and what is that for?
Oh yeah, bombos. So from an organization called The Drawer, we got a donation of 500 pairs of underwear. And then from another Bombo's underwear, not just
Yeah.
run of the mill underwear, but Bombo's underwear. And then later this after this call, I'm going to pick up from a woman named Linda. She has this big, beautiful knitting group in Woodbury, and we're going to pick up donations of a whole bunch. I don't know exactly the count, but a whole bunch of hats and mittens that are knitted. Women sit around and they knit these and then they donate them to help people. And we're going to take those socks, or I mean those hat and those mittens and those underwear, and we're part of a big, it's called the Pit, I think it's called the Pit something. Um South Washington County Cares is putting together next week this big engagement where people that are homeless can come there and get things to meet their needs, their basic needs. Basic Needs is actually one of the organizations that's putting it on.
Okay.
Pit Stop, it's called Pit Stop.
Okay.
So it's incredible, just incredible. So yeah, that's every day is different, every day is different. The other day, I was blessed to reconnect. A year ago, I reconnected with a teacher that made a difference in my life.
Hmm.
When I was in high school, when I met this teacher, I was 15 years old in 10th grade. And, you got to remember by the time I'm 10th grade, my dad wasn't in my life. My grandpa had molested me. I was pregnant and had I was a teenager and had a child, and I was getting beat by his dad. And then I walk into this sewing class and meet this angel named Mrs. Richards. Sometimes I would go to school hungry and she would give me her lunch. She encouraged me to go to college. It made me take the entrance exams and everything. College wasn't spoken of in my house. There was no college, right? And then at the end of my, senior year, here she had nominated me for the National Honor Society. And the other teachers didn't want me to get it. They thought that I would be a poor representation of the school having a child, in ninth grade. But Mrs. Richards, she fought for me, and I won. I got nominated and I won the National Honor Society in 12th grade.
Wow.
You fast forward, I went to college, I did the things right. And then in the year 2000, they started showing those commercials about teachers that make a difference in people's lives, right? And I could not stop thinking about her. So I started searching for her. For about 20 years, I searched for her. And I kept calling Harding, but Harding wouldn't give me any information on her. That was the school that I went to
Well,
until I started speaking there with Hope for the Brave. That's one of the high schools that I speak at. And I told them, I said, I really want to meet up with her. I want to tell her what a difference she made in my life and what I'm doing now. And they gave me her address. I wrote her a letter. And for the first time last July of 2024, I went and visited her the 4th of July weekend. And then I started visiting her every month after that. And last month, Mrs. Richards went into hospice.
okay.
So yesterday, I went and brought her flowers. You know, I just praise God that I got to connect with her. You know, I, when I showed up to visit her, she can't eat on her own anymore now. But for 12 months, she could when I was with her, right?
Yeah.
But yesterday, she can no longer eat on her own. So I was feeding her. And she says, "Who would have thought that you would ever be feeding me?" And I
Yeah.
said, "Mrs. Richards, when you were my age, you were feeding me.
Yeah.
And I am honored to feed you right now."
Yes. Isn't it
And
amazing how things can come full circle? Like if we're just
uh,
paying attention. It's funny that
yeah.
you mentioned that. Yesterday, I met with my one of my early bosses, not when I was waiting tables, but my first adult boss was a psychologist, and I'm up in the North Woods right now in a cabin in Minnesota, and he and his family, and I had posted on Facebook, and his wife's family has property up here, and they're there cleaning things up and taking care of family business, and they live in Arizona the rest of the year, but and have been living in Florida, and here we are, we both were an hour and a half apart, and he reaches out to me on Facebook and he said, "Come see me." And I spent
Ah,
8 hours with he and his wife, and reminiscing, and it was amazing, when we
yeah.
create those soul connections with people,
Yes.
the
Oh,
thing, it was he would hear things come out of my mouth when I was telling stories. He's like, "You learned that from me. Oh my gosh, you still teach that. You still practice that." With my wellness workshop group next Saturday, we're doing something called Valentine's. And my friend Michael, he used to teach a 6 week long class. And it was like diving into what's blocking you, what's stopping you. And he said, he wants me to revive it. He said, "I want you to leave. I want it to be my legacy. I want you to start teaching this." So it's like, oh, that might be a possibility. But at the last day of the class, you would look around the room and every person would get a little piece of paper, enough, if there were 30 people in the class, you'd get 30 pieces of paper, and you would look around at each person in the room and write down 3 things that you liked about them, learned about them,
oh,
admire about them. And I call them Valentines. I don't remember what he called them, but I call them Valentines. And I use that with people, with my groups, with my workshops 40 years later. And I told them, we just did it this week with my workshop, my Saturday morning workshop. And this coming Saturday, everybody's going to get to read their Valentines for the other people. Everybody will have, like
oh,
30 Valentines. So it's like,
you
when
have
you,
got, you've got to send that to me because I want to do that.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm
we'll
doing
talk
a
about it.
women's
We'll
ministry
talk about
thing.
what that looks like. But
Yes.
isn't it, you're experiencing that from a teacher. I'm experiencing that from a mentor. I spent a month in Africa this year in March with my friend Jessica, and she was my mentor when I was 18 years old, 2 years before Michael, teaching me sales
Wow.
training. And we don't necessarily appreciate our relationships. To me, people go, I may not have a lot of money, but I have a lot of assets, and my assets are the people in my life. Those are the people
Hmm.
that have stayed with me, that have been there through thick and thin, and
Yep.
you can still reach out to them.
Yes.
Again, she had reached out to me on Facebook, and she knew that my mom and dad had both recently passed, and said, come stay with me in Africa. This is the cradle of humanity. This is where you will heal
Oh,
your grief, and I'll take care of you. And she did. She cooked for me. She took
praise
care of me. She
God.
made a beautiful bedroom up. And I mean, it was, yeah, you don't know where God's blessings are going to come from or who they're going to come through, but they're
Yes.
there if you're listening and
Amen.
watching and being vulnerable and maybe even surrendering. For me, a big part of it is surrendering to the struggles and asking for
Yes.
help if you need it.
Yes. Yes. Because humbling yourself, right?
Yeah.
Humbling
Humbling.
yourself. And you know what I love about what you just said is without saying it, I can tell that you recognize fully that the best things in life aren't things.
Yeah.
You know, the best things, people strive to have more, to have more, to have more.
Yeah.
You can't take that with you, and when you go, people aren't going to remember, oh, she worked real hard. They're going to remember how you loved.
Yeah.
They're going to talk about how you loved people. They're going to talk about the memories that you made, you know, and yet as a society, we strive for more, right? I want more of that. I want more of if I die, when I die, because we all will,
Yeah.
I want to be known for loving people well.
Yeah.
That's what I want to be known for.
Yeah. I
Loving
even put
people
that on my
well.
LinkedIn profile. I want to leave a legacy of love. It's the last thing on my LinkedIn profile about me. And I don't have a lot of
Yeah.
things because everything I own, I put in my car. After my mom and dad died, I sold the house and I gave away everything else that was in it from top to bottom. And if it doesn't fit in my car, it can't go with me. Now I don't have stress about stuff because every day I just spend time with people. I have an opportunity to just go drive an hour and a half to spend a day with somebody. The folks that I'm staying with here on Mille Lacs, again, also blessed me with this tiny little cabin where I could finish writing my book and making the edits and getting the revisions done. And I'm in God's
Wow.
country, looking out, this 6-foot window at Lake Mille Lacs is what I'm looking at over the top of this computer. And again, it's all blessings. So how we show up in the world, how we pour into other people can actually be poured into us when we're open to it. We can
That's exactly
receive.
right.
We don't always have to give. And I was a caregiver
That's
for
right.
a long time, caring for both parents full time. And it was really hard and it was really painful to grieve their loss. And there was this gaping hole in my life. And yet God has found a way to fill it with so much joy and so
Yeah.
much happiness that
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes I'm going to explode. Like I'm the Stay Puft
Hmm.
Marshmallow Man and I'm getting bigger and bigger and bigger and I'm just going to pop.
Love that. I love
Yeah.
that. That's what I say about myself when I eat bread. I feel like I blow up like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. But you're right. To
Yeah.
me, serving it makes me feel so but
Yeah.
what you put out, it comes back. You are blessed. You
Yeah.
are blessed.
Yeah.
And you served. You helped your mom and your dad. You did all those things and now it's coming back full circle.
It
God
is.
blesses you. I
And
love Yahweh. He really that's a whole nother talk. I could go on and on and on. I'm blessed. I'm blessed to be chosen.
yeah.
I would have never thought, if 10 years ago, when I was addicted to drugs, if you would have told me in 10 years, everything that you have been through that hurts you, everything that you're trying to mask, everything that you're afraid for people to find out about, you're going to speak those things loudly. And they're going to help. All of these experiences are going to be used because you're going to be used to help people. I would have told you were nuts.
Yeah. And there's no shame in it. You're speaking it
No.
and there's no shame in it. For someone listening who feels trapped in violence, addiction or shame right now, what first steps can they take today towards that freedom?
Yeah, definitely talk about it. Tell someone. I'm not saying that you have to go on a podcast and announce your life story and tell what's going on with you, but sometimes that happens because telling someone gives you freedom. Right now, sometimes I feel that when things happen to us, we feel all this guilt, all this shame, all these things that we're going through bring us guilt and shame because we know what we're struggling with. And we look at all the people outside of us with our eyeballs and we see, oh, that person looks really put together. Everybody doesn't look like what they're going through. So you think you're alone. You think you're the only one. But the reality is you're not the only one. And when you voice what you're going through, it frees you. It really does. It frees you from the guilt and the shame. This is not something that when something happens to you, when somebody does something to hurt you, that is not something to feel guilt and shame about. They hurt you. This is something that happened to you. And not telling people and holding the secrets aren't good unless it's like a birthday present, right? If you don't want me to tell people about the things that you're doing to me, don't do them to me. you know that's the way that I feel about that. I don't know. Number one though is definitely talk about it. Talk to somebody that you can trust. Everybody has one person that they can trust, and
Might be a
just go
stranger.
from there. Yes.
It might be a stranger. How can families, communities, and churches support those that are caught in these cycles? How can they support your mission right now? Is there a way if somebody wants to make a monthly donation or an annual one-time donation? How do folks find you, get in touch with you, and participate in your mission?
So the way that you can make donations is at hopeforbrave.org, HOPEFORBRAVE.org. How you can help us, there's lots of different ways to help us. Number one, you can share what we're doing with others. Like what you're doing right now, Lisa. You're allowing us to share what we're doing with others. You can serve with us. We do events like our upcoming holiday event. We need people to help us serve the community. If you are somebody that donates financially, if you are blessed in that way, you can obviously donate to us. We need that. But yeah, serving, sharing, donating, these are all ways that we need help, always.
And the website is the main location. Go to the website. And that, of course, will be in the show notes for this. If you're listening online or if you're seeing this on YouTube, you can find those connections, those links will be in the show notes. All right. Well, I think we've reached the end of our time. What a powerful conversation. Your story reminds me that no matter how deep the pain, no matter how heavy the chains, there's always a way. Hope is the way. Faith leads the way.
Yep.
Your courage, the courage to share your journey from trauma to addiction and the freedom and purpose that have shown up in your life because of it will definitely trickle down into somebody who's listening to this. It will have an impact even moving forward. So thank you for sharing your story today and encouraging others to do the same thing. And folks, if Jennifer's story spoke to your heart today, I encourage you, learn more and support the mission of Hope for the Brave. Or Hope for Brave. I put in the Brave in the title, but it's Hope for Brave. Together, we can help end cycles of generational violence and offer healing to those who need it most. Again, you'll find all those links in my notes, and I hope you take action. Please do. Thank you so much for being with us today on A Bit of Insight, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Come on back. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for joining me on A Bit of Insight. To get more involved with our wellness community, grab a copy of my book, Live Well, Travel Far, or to explore our travel offerings, visit the website at insightcenterforwellness.com. And if today's episode gave you something to think about, leave a review and please share it with a friend. This is Lisa Mosbey reminding you to live well, travel far, and always follow your insight.